Hi folks, welcome to the A Minute to Midnight Show. This is Tony coming to you from New Zealand, and today we are going to be discussing a topic which I feel we needed to cover, and that is the coronavirus. Though the situation is changing pretty rapidly all the time, and trying to keep up with the information is not always the easiest. What's fake and what's true, and what's the latest news. Don't forget to, folks, A Minute to Midnight is run 100% by donations. If you can help by donating, that is greatly appreciated. You can do that on our website, aminutetomidnight.com, and I really appreciate the people that help us out. We can't run this show without your help. So thanks, folks. If you want to join those that help us out, that would be very much appreciated. So today on the show, I have Fred Skritzmeyer and Cara Pickering. And the intention of the show is to bring a non-hyped and practical and sound, down-to-earth advice on the coronavirus. So I'm pleased to welcome to the A Minute to Midnight Show Fred Skritzmeyer, the ET Prepper. Well, Fred has been on the show a few times, and of course he's a moderator on the A Minute to Midnight forum, Facebook group, and also Cara Pickering. Now, Cara and I have talked about doing shows for, I guess, 3 years now, Cara, but we haven't actually had you on the show till now, and it just seems like the right time. So Cara and Fred are friends, and I've spoken with Cara before, so it's really good to have the three of us together. Welcome, guys.
Thanks, Tony. It's good hearing your voice. Hi, Cara.
It's really good to have you both on the show, and basically the topic we'll be covering today is the novel coronavirus, the Wuhan virus, which has now, as of today, probably by this show goes out, it'll be a day old. The WHO, World Health Organization, has declared a global emergency, and apparently there's been around about 8,000 cases reported worldwide, most of them in mainland China, and I think about 170 dead so far. So, I've got some things I can say, but I'll throw it to you guys, perhaps to Cara first.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Tony. Much has been said in the news about this mystery coronavirus that has seemingly sprung out of nowhere to what the news wants us to think annihilate mankind. It's been likened to a malevolent bubonic plague that has ravaged nearly 50 million people in the 1400s. Honestly, it really couldn't be farther from the truth. Although it has become a public health emergency of international concern, or a PHEIC today, it is a grossly misunderstood germ. It's my intention to shed some light on the confusing subject. So I guess the biggest question for people is, what is the coronavirus? Well, first off, it's not the coronavirus. Coronavirus is not a noun. It is a descriptor, a term, or a classification. When classifying microbes, it's first determined whether or not it's a bacteria, fungus, a virus, or a parasite. A corona is a type of virus. There are tens of thousands of types of viruses and tens of thousands of types of coronaviruses. Today, I have swollen lymph nodes, a whopper of a headache, plugged ears, severe congestion, a cough, a minimal shortness of breath. And guess what it is? Are you ready? It's a coronavirus. Gasp, I know. But
I think I got a touch of it too, Cara.
What was that?
I said, I think I got a touch of it too.
Right? And it's just going around. And even the mild cold is that type of coronavirus. And sometimes you can develop like a secondary bacterial infection in your sinuses, lungs, ears, etc., where you would need to get an antibiotic to get rid of that secondary infection. But more severe cases of coronavirus would be severe acute respiratory syndrome, also known as SARS, or Middle East respiratory syndrome, also known as MERS. I'm not going to give a full pathology report or anything, here on this, but this is a skinny on the coronavirus in question. This virus is not technically a living thing. It lacks cellular structure. It is what they call a bacteriophage that attaches to a cell in order to replicate. Viruses will use the nucleus of a cell to quickly make either a DNA or an RNA making machine to make duplicates of that infected cell. Coronavirus uses RNA. There are 15 RNA viruses. I think the pluralized version would be pronounced viridae. The most notable of late being Flavi, where we get Zika, Philo, where we get Ebola, and Corona, which is the common cold, or even SARS, MERS, and the 2019 novel coronavirus, also known as the Wuhan flu. And although coronavirus has only become a household name in January of 2020, we've got to realize that this virus is not new to us. Viruses were discovered in 1892, and the coronavirus was actually discovered in the 1960s. These were, we look at it, human coronavirus 229E and OC43, and according to Wikipedia, they are deemed responsible parties for the common cold, although, of course, respiratory symptoms can range from mild discomfort to high morbidity outcomes such as pneumonia or bronchiolitis. That's a mouthful. The Wuhan flu, or the 2019 nCoV, is a new single-stranded RNA positive sense virus that can be transmitted by human-to-human interaction. Although it was initially assumed that it was caused by a seafood market in Wuhan, China, illegally selling wild animals as food, it is now being reported to have been passed to humankind through snakes. Other coronaviruses in the past have had bats, civets, and other wild animals as its reservoir. The SARS outbreak, for instance, of 2002-2013, infected at least 8,098 people, resulting in 774 deaths in 17 countries. Its origin has been found in civets or horseshoe bats in China, and its mortality rate has a whopping 9.8%, whereas Wuhan virus in China today only is assumed to be at 2.4 to 3.8% mortality rate. That's a huge difference. The problem with Wuhan virus is that it has a R0.4 rating, infecting roughly 4 out of 10 people. If you're good at math and understand exponents, you understand why Harvard epidemiologist, I believe his name is Dr. Eric Fielding, produced his alarming analysis of this corona outbreak on Twitter Saturday, and he, I believe, hyped it quite a bit and called the virus thermonuclear pandemic level bad. I'm not seeing it quite that way. The World Health Organization, like you said before, has declared it a public health emergency of international concern as of today, January 30th, 2020. The most recent count for infected persons is over the 8,000 mark, which is higher than the SARS epidemic of 2002 and 2003 by just a little bit. When assuming that not all infected persons have been diagnosed or maybe possibly staying home, opposed to seeking treatments at the hospital, it could be a little bit higher. And I can't say I blame them for staying home, quite honestly, as the hospitals over there are kind of overcrowded. Some reports have suggested like a 2-day waiting period within the hospital.
Oh, can I jump in there real quick?
Sure.
I was just watching an amazing live feed from China. They're building a hospital there with 1,000 beds, I believe is what they're shooting for, in 6 days. Okay, they're breaking the ground and they're going to have it up and running in 6 days. Apparently they did this for the SARS thing back in 2003. They built 1,000 hospital bed, and now they're also breaking ground for a 1,500 bed unit, and they're building this in 6 days, which is amazing. And you know, it's saying it's making a statement that they're real serious about, you know, containing this and that kind of thing. But I just want to throw that in there that there's some kind of neat things going on besides all negative stuff.
That's true. I think that they actually might be building 2 hospitals. Yeah. And right now, the hospitals are overcrowded because it's not all cases of people that are coming in. It's people that are worried that they might have it and want to get checked out. But many affected people obviously were in those hospitals in order to get diagnosed. The one thing to mention, though, is the Spanish flu. I think it was in the early 1900s. And again, I'm not trying to over-sensationalize this. The The Spanish flu was, I believe, a mortality rate of 2 to 5%, depending on what sources you view. And one thing to consider back then was the lack of transportation that we currently know now. Up until today, no flights were canceled coming from the quarantine cities in China. As of yesterday, I think it was 13 cities, if I'm not mistaken, that were on lockdown. It's unknown if or when the flights will be canceled coming out of China because of the coronavirus being declared the public health emergency. It might be a little too little, maybe a little too late, or possibly this never really was a huge concern in the first place. It's kind of up in the air right now. Nobody really knows the outcome of this for sure. But I know that we're not to live in fear. That's no way to live. Think about the economic ramifications if we sit there and we just live in fear.
Yeah.
It should be noted that some carriers of this virus, though, do not display any symptoms. They have said that they've had several cases now where the person has tested positive, only because they were with somebody that had coronavirus and they did not show any symptoms. And it does seem to target, just like the regular flu would, the elderly, the young, those with weakened immune systems. Typically, the symptoms are flu and pneumonia-like, passed on by tiny water droplets from sneezing or coughing. The symptoms would include fever, cough, sore throats, difficulty breathing, and some could probably even experience mild joint and muscle pain. And I think the biggest thing that, people need to realize is there is a way to prevent illness other than just reading the news and staying in the house all the time. And be advised before give any of this information. I am not a physician. Before you start taking any supplements or drastically change your diet, consult your physician. My number one recommendation, guys, is to wash your hands frequently with soap and water for a minimum of 20 seconds. Do not touch your eyes, ears, nose, mouth, unless your hands are clean. I mean, it's kind of common sense. Number 3, avoid sick people if possible. If you must be in contact with a sick person, observe the first 2 rules I just shared, and then wear an N95 mask. And I think maybe Fred or Tony could probably get into those a little bit better. But I do know that the flimsy little masks that you wear in the waiting room, say at the doctor's office, or the ones that you see in the majority of the Chinese public photos are insufficient. We need to remember that any respirator is only as good as its seal, the way it seals around your face. And be sure to wash your clothing after you are in contact with any sick person, and the hotter the water, the better. Obviously, we also need to be physically prepared, and we need to protect our immune systems. Supplement with zinc tablets, or maybe you take some colloidal silver when you feel like you're sick, because the silver particles that are negatively charged in the water. And seeing that the coronavirus is a positive charge, they will negate each other. Not only is it going to negate the cell, it'll also starve it of oxygen, and it will prohibit the reproduction of infected cells. Also, get sufficient rest. Eat healthy, right, guys? Give your bodies the tools it needs. Eat plenty of fresh fruits and dark leafy vegetables. Avoid GMOs and non-organics if you can, if possible. They're kind of expensive. And, consider a whole food plant-based diet, eating foods that are as close as possible to how God created them. He is amazing. He knows what our bodies need. And, honestly, if your foods are processed, they're garbage. Don't forget to wash them. And the best rule, I think, personally, that we are trying to remember now in our household is garbage in, garbage out. We are what we eat. And trust me, I have to remind myself of that every day. I also did a little bit of research. Eating foods high in camphorol, as they are a good 3A channel blocker, actually will help fight coronavirus. This is actually proven peer-reviewed studies. So we're looking at apples and grapes, tomatoes, green tea, potatoes, onions, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, squash, cucumbers, lettuce, green beans, peaches, blackberries, raspberries, and of course, the mighty spinach. And a wise woman once told me that we must not think that taking a single supplement will protect us. That's not how it works. Having an arsenal of numerous chemical weapons requires eating a variety of fresh fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and nuts daily, and a lot of them. In fact, plants really should be the basis of our diets, not animal protein and fat. I'm not saying don't eat it. I'm just saying it shouldn't be the basis. Like the standard American diet, we have no problem eating like an 18-ounce prime rib. That should not be like the basis of our diet. What we want is something a little bit more like the Garden of Eden, or if you look in like the days of Jacob, like in Genesis 25:28 through 30, it suggests that like a good common meal back then was actually a hearty red lentil soup of all things, and game meat was actually just like a special treat. So just eating better things for us, and the things that aren't good for us, reducing that. She also told me that I should check out plantritionproject.org, which I plan on doing. And she mentioned the China study of all names for books, right? By T. Colin Campbell, PhD. And I actually read the China study, and it was a very good book. But if we're going to talk about healthy stuff, I think it's a good idea to obviously exercise. And if that's hard, start off small, work your way up. And I think the most important thing we can do, guys, is to be spiritually prepared. And I keep recalling Psalm 91. Did you want me to read that?
Yep.
Okay. Let me see if I find it here. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him I trust. Surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. And He shall cover thee with His feathers, and under His wings thou shalt trust. His truth shall be my shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid of the terror by night, nor the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. Only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked, because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation, meaning He is within you. There shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. For He shall give His angels charge over thee to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against the stone. Thou shalt tread upon the lion and adder, the young lion and the dragon shall thou trample under your feet. Because He hath set His love upon me, therefore I deliver him, and I set him on high, because he hath known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. For I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life will I satisfy him and shew him my salvation. You know, that is amazing, amazing scripture that we have from the Lord. It is a promise that if we abide with him, he will be our protection. You know, I think staying in prayer in the days ahead, whether it's a virus or whether it's the other things that are spoken of in the Bible. I mean, look at Matthew 24. There is a lot of things that we could be looking at up ahead. But to stay in prayer, you know, and just to be humble and repent when needed. And, you know, oftentimes we kind of pray for our own skin, but I really think it's also important to pray for others. And right now, I'm praying for the people in China with or without the virus, as this affects more than just health. It's also taking a heavy toll on their economy if people aren't able to work and people aren't able to get the supplies that they need. Christians are also like so persecuted over there already, and they already go through so much. The least I can do for them, even though I can't personally send anything into them right now, until some type of avenue has been opened by the Lord, I can at least pray. And, I think one more thing before, I completely hand it over is I think that we sometimes forget the authority that Christ has given us, that he has instructed us to use. It's his authority. It's spelled out in Luke 9. And we've been given power to trample on serpents, including serpentine, reservoir viruses and scorpions. And I think I stated before that this coronavirus is Latin for crown. And when you view this little germ under a microscope, it looks like a 3D halo or a crown around a cell. And it's very interesting to me that this virus, new to mankind, of serpentine origin, holds the name of a crown. I guess you could call it, in other words, a crowned serpent virus. This new or novel coronavirus seeks to kill, steal, and destroy life. Who does that remind you of? Who else seeks the crown is of serpentine nature, who seeks to kill, steal, and destroy? With that said, there's a lot of hype and hysteria in the mainstream these days, and if we believe the numbers that China is presenting regarding this coronavirus outbreak, there is a little over really 8,000 confirmed cases as of today of the coronavirus. And yeah, I do realize the first acknowledged case was recognized in late December. I believe it's December 21st, 2019. And then it has ballooned in just 1 month. But again, we have to kind of put things in perspective. I just did a couple little numbers real quick to see what are we looking at? What are the odds that you get something versus something else? I've always kind of been a numbers person. It's kind of my language. And according to the American Heart Association, there were 17.6 million deaths globally in 2016 attributed to cardiovascular disease. Let me repeat that number again. 17.6 million deaths globally because of cardiovascular disease. If left untreated, cardiovascular disease will lead to certain death. Unlike the coronavirus, we're looking at 17.6 million versus 8,000. And almost all cardiovascular disease leads to death. We're here only possibly up to 4 in 10 are affected, and it only has a mortality rate of less than 4%. And I hate to make light of only, but when we're looking at these numbers, it's just astounding to me that people are so worried about this little virus, but yet they're not willing to deal with heart disease, which kills a staggering 17.6 million people globally in 2016. But then if we look even at a smaller stat, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, there were 36,560 traffic deaths in America alone. Wow. I mean, that's 4 times more than what we're seeing right now in this hyped up coronavirus. Could it turn into something else? Could we be looking at something completely different, a month or 2 from now? Possibly. But I think people are worried prematurely, and they're not thinking of the simple things to take care of ourselves.
Cara,
and I hand it over to you.
Cara, you said something. It just kind of rang a bell because, people are jumping ahead. They're saying the potential, like that Harvard, I think you said a Harvard professor was saying, nuclear, blah, blah, blah. It has the potential of it. Also, there's a lot of people praying for this, and God has the potential of just squashing it, and then it disappears. Sure. And so a lot of times we get all hyped up. I mean, we as in our society or alternative media folks, or now I've been kind of stepping back and watching how the mainstream media is now picking this up, and it's gaining more and more momentum because it's now newsworthy. It's something that everybody's all of a sudden interested in. There was a lot of people that were ahead of the curve, and they were super hyper and really nervous about it. And it's kind of like you got to take a slower view of what's going on. Slow down, and then, but you slow down the mentality of it, but prepare. If you know the potential could be catastrophic, and 4 in 10 might get it, or whatever. We didn't know that a month ago, but it's just slow that thinking down of hyper, worry and being scared about it, and be proactive and start doing things like you were just talking about. Take care of yourself. I produced a video of what should you do when you get the coronavirus, and it's just some common sense things. It's eating right, like what you were talking about. Eating right, take some supplements, and then I have this thing that I invented, another common sense thing, but I call it my water fest. And what I do is I drink a gallon of water within an hour, and it flushes everything out. And I feel great afterwards. My vision improves. Everything is like, wow, I feel so much better. And I'll tell you what, I think that and taking supplements and sometimes eating right. you were really convicting me there for a little bit. But anyway.
Well, we're all worried about this Wuhan virus, but here we keep putting burgers and fries in our faces.
Yeah. I'll tell you. But anyway, it's being, if you're proactive. Okay, well, let me ask you a question. Here's a simple question to think about. When you're sitting there, and I think there's going to be some sort of ball game coming up in the next day or so, like called the Super Bowl. Everybody's going to be sitting on their edge of the chair and all excited and just wound up tight, right? Well, if you know the outcome of the game, and you were sitting there, and you knew the score was going to be 28 to 24 or something, and you knew who won, would you be as wound up and excited and nervous and everything else? No, because you know who wins the game. Well, there's two things. If you're proactive, you're probably going to be doing a lot better than the average person out there, and so you've got some confidence going into it. You're not worrying, which has an effect on your immune system as well, and so you're in a better position. And then the other facet of this is when you know how the game ends and you win, then you're not as anxious, or you shouldn't be as anxious in life as you should be. And what I'm referring to is, if you don't know Jesus Christ as your Savior, and you don't know how the game ends, and you don't want the game to end because you are nervous about things, and you've heard of this place called hell, which is a reality. Well, nobody wants to end up there. And people, everybody in this life, it's a 1-to-1, 100%. We're all going to die at one point in time or another. And when you know how the game ends, it's not so worrisome. And it's funny, my wife has cancer, and she has all sorts of troubles and pains and frustrations and all that with all the different things that are going on in her body. And she's like, a couple of years ago, I had a different perspective, but my perspective now is like, bring me home, Lord. She says, even if I'm having a good day now, I'm asking the Lord to bring me home. And the reason she says that, she's not morbid, but her body's giving her all this trouble, and she knows where she's going. She knows she wins. She's going to win the Super Bowl of life called eternity with Jesus Christ. So those are the things we need to prepare with. Be proactive with your physical stuff, but the spiritual stuff is, you need Jesus if you don't already have him.
Amen.
So yeah, guys, it's good. I'll just jump in and bring a few things up here that I think bear mentioning. First up, people might be wondering the WHO, their definition of a health emergency. I'll just tell you what that is, since they've declared one. It is an extraordinary event which constitutes a public health risk to other states through the international spread of disease and potentially requires a coordinated international response. Now, basically, it is when they declare that, when the WHO committee declares a global health emergency, whatever it says, it's legally binding. It's an illegally binding announcement which requires every nation member to take action, whatever that action may be. Now, I know in New Zealand, currently at the moment, the New Zealand Ministry of Health Director, Dr. Ashley Bloomfield, said the advice to all countries from the WHO was to be prepared for containment, active surveillance, early detection and trace management, and prevent of onward spread, and to share full data with the WHO. Okay, so New Zealand at this point has no plans to screen passengers coming into New Zealand for the virus. That's got to tell you something, that they're not at this point super duper worried about it. Bloomfield suggests that New Zealand they can test for the virus within hours, basically. And New Zealand's in the process of bringing home its 163 citizens from Wuhan, and they'll be flying out in a private plane, so they won't be on public transport. But so that's a few little bits and pieces. I do want to just add here is that I'm sure many of you are aware that on October the 18th, 2019 in New York City, they held something called Event 201, which was a high-level pandemic exercise hosted by Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security with partners, the World Economic Forum, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and Johnson & Johnson and others, CDC and so on. And they did a simulation, including a simulated news report and a fabricated scenario of a global pandemic, which is eerily similar to this coronavirus now. Okay, now some people are saying, well, it's deliberate. They set it up, and that's why they did this, rehearsal or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I don't think any of us knows for sure. There's been so much hyped up alternative media stuff. Trying to figure out what's genuine and what's fake news at times can be difficult. But one thing that I find interesting to note is that simulation exercise at Event 201 advocated controlling the media to combat fake news, weeding out social media posts that don't follow the narrative of the crisis. It's basically you have to trust us, we'll tell you the truth scenario. And it also slammed anti-vaccination advocates. Essentially, the elites had run a simulation that shows us sort of lowly ones that they are onto it. They know what to do, and so we can trust them to have the solution to a possible pandemic as long as everyone follows their lead. Really, a pandemic could actually be a globalist's dream, where they have a scapegoat for a financial crisis, something they can pin their hat on as the reason for a financial crisis, and also to show us that we need the globalist control of any crisis. Ordo ab chaos, or order out of chaos. Never let a good crisis go to waste. So whatever the origin of this, and I think there's debatable, and there's an awful lot of hyped up stuff. I think for those people that are giving out hyped up, sensationalised news that doesn't bear reality, you might find yourselves in their crosshairs in the future, and banned and so on. You're probably not doing anyone any good by creating sort of sensationalised articles with some fact and a bunch of speculation in them. So, folks, and as Cara and Fred have said, don't panic about this thing. Just trust God, and then do some things that are beneficial, because you're not going to gain anything by panicking. But there are things you can do to protect yourself from this virus or any other virus, as both Cara and Fred have stated. So, yeah, that's kind of, there's more I could say, but I think I'll just hand it back to you guys.
Yeah, Tony, we talked about specifically targeting the virus. When when you're taking care of yourself and you're getting, the good nutrients and rest and all the things that, like Cara was saying. But really, I mean, don't you want to feel great? I want to physically in this body. I want to feel great. I want to feel better than good. And then the way to do that is, taking care of this body that's going to haul me around for the next 50 years or whatever God's got in store for me. And, so besides being able to fight the virus better or the common cold or whatever, I want to feel good. I had my ex-mother-in-law passed away several years ago, and I remember about a decade before that, she got one of these micro strokes, and she was starting to take care of herself, and she was getting off the couch and starting to move around and walking in the mall before it opened up and stuff like that. And you could just see her getting more vibrant. And then she had one of these little mini strokes, and I told my wife at the time, I said, "Man, that's an excuse to just sit around and And sure enough, I just kind of I know it sounds terrible to say it like that, but in a sense, that's what it was. And she ended up just living in a chair, watching TV all the time, and worrying about this stroke and getting another stroke and whatever. And she had no life. And you know what? I'd rather live a shorter life and live vibrantly and well, instead of just sitting in a chair, doing nothing. So anyway, that's the thing, folks, is just learn how to take care of yourself as best you can, and not giving yourself excuses to not be active and not, you can pass on the Hostess cupcakes and all the good stuff. And that's always good, and choose a vegetable instead of the, piece of candy or whatever. Anyway, that's, it's so important if you want to live well. And I think we all do. We all want to feel great, and it takes a little bit of effort.
Yeah, and I can sort of vouch for it. I mean, I've been really watching my diet and getting plenty of exercise, and I'm basically not eating junk food and watching the amount of sugar. I think New Zealand food tends not to have as much sugar as American food anyway, but it's still too much. And so I've been changing a lot of things, eating red meat I still do, but maybe no more than 2 or 3 days a week, and eating, fish and different things. And I'll tell you what, plus the exercise, I've lost a bit of weight. I wasn't super overweight, but I've definitely lost, some in the last few months, and I'm feeling far better, much better with the exercise and all that. So it's got to be good for you, and we don't really need all that junk food anyway. It's people eat far too much of it. So, yep, Cara, you got any more points to add?
Really, the only thing I have to add is that we have not been given a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and of a sound mind. Don't let those fear porn propagators sit there and feed you that garbage. Because just like with our mouths, garbage in, garbage out, same thing with the media that we take in. Garbage in and garbage out. And I'll end with that.
Excellent advice. Fred?
Yeah, we had talked about, kind of touched on everything. Cara was talking about the masks, and one more thing. I actually did a little bit of research on the masks, and the N95, which stands for NIOSH. You can look it up online, and it'll explain about it. And I did my own little piece on a video I made about it. And you got to make sure that mask fits. If one is needed, you can get these disposable ones, or you can get these fabric ones. We have some at our house because I had to have these for being around Cindy when she was, her immune system was like at 0. And so I'm a little familiar with them. And so I actually bought a package of 20 of them for like $8 on eBay. And I noticed they were all selling out. And so people are concerned about that. And, it's good to have, I'm going to use them because I work with dusty stuff, and I'll do some woodworking or whatever. I'm always into stuff that is dirty. I just woodworking and working on cars and just dusty stuff. And so I tend to use those, and so they aren't going to go to waste in my shop. But if you have some on the shelf at home, they're cheap, and if needed in the emergency, you got them. And I'll tell you, if this thing were to grow more and more, you wouldn't be able to get N95 masks. A lot of them come from China anyway. So, and I think a lot of imports are going to be affected with this virus, no matter what happens, whether it propagates into something bigger or fizzles out. There's still a big impact it's already made on their economy. And in my work, I am looking at buying or possibly sourcing some things out of China at times. And so that I'm trying to find a competitive source here in the States. I'd love to do that in the first place anyway. But the point is, even my thinking about that is this virus thing has changed it. So anyway, we just need to, like always, cooler heads prevail. And there's a couple of things in an emergency that is important. One of the first things in an emergency is being able to have a cooler head. It's a thought process, not a reaction process. You know the difference, right? You think it through and not just have a knee-jerk reaction of fear and panic. And so there's that. And in an emergency, time is your friend. And when you take care of yourself in this situation, you're probably going to buy yourself time. But also, again, like Tony was saying, he's feeling great because he's taking care of himself. So with that, I'll leave it up to you, Tony.
Yeah, thanks for that, Fred. I would just add a couple of little things here. One, as Fred was saying, I think this could impact the economic situation, and it could potentially be a big downer for the world economy, and that possibly could be part of the planning. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. So it's good to make sure you're stocked up on food and essential things anyway. So whatever happens, that you're stocked up to survive for a wee while. The other thing, just on the mask situation, I don't think we should be running around wearing masks at this point. But one thing, if people do, that they've got to realise that if they are in a contaminated place and they are wearing a mask, doesn't matter how good that mask is, the contaminants could be on the outside of it. As soon as you take it off and you use your hands, you could get those germs on your hands. And then you put your hand in your mouth or touch your nose or whatever, and bam, you've got the virus anyway. So the masks are not a cure-all and save-all, but if you do have to use them, make sure that you wash your hands thoroughly after taking the mask off before you touch your face or whatever. So that was about it, all I wanted to say. It's been a good discussion.
One more thing I think we should add, too, when talking about preparatory precautions, there are a lot of people who are on medicines right now. And I don't think most people realize we're American medicines. I'm not sure where they come from when you guys order them in New Zealand, but many of ours in the United States do come from China. So if you have the chance now to maybe fill that prescription that you've been wanting to fill for a couple of weeks and you just kind of been putting it off, it might not be a bad idea to make sure you have that prescription at your disposal.
Good point. All right, guys. Well, it's been a great discussion, and the three of us will have to do some more discussions. It's great to finally have had you on the show after talking about it for 3 years, Cara. And Fred, it's always good and it's always good to have you as well, Fred. So thanks, guys.
Real good. Thanks, Tony. Thanks for all you do.
God bless, guys.
Folks, don't forget to give this the thumbs up if you're watching it on YouTube. Of course, we also put it on our website, aminutetomidnight.com, and on iTunes. Make sure you're subscribed to our iTunes channel and also our YouTube channel. And by the way, the iTunes channel is normally the one that gets it first, our broadcasts. And aminutetomidnight.com is where you will find all of our shows as archives. And we do run A Minute to Midnight by donations 100%. We'd really greatly appreciate if anyone wants to help us and join the few people that do help to keep this running. You can donate at our website and that'll be great. The music I have written, played and recorded that's used in the shows, and we have a forum on our website as well as a Facebook group. That's about it for today. Hope you enjoyed the show, and God willing, we'll be back with another show in a few days' time.